Yeah. Right. You know I'm wildin', willin' and dealin', stylin' and profiling, jet flying, I'm chillin'. Classic give you a feeling, tailor-made my appearance, sippin' out the success fountain, bitches riding Space Mountain.
From la lucha libre to the WCW, got not the hit that's straight up loving you. And from the orale ese to the yes, yes, yo. Who wants to step to my homeboy K-Dog and get slammed on the Mack? Get your whole head cracked. The way man once slash vocals on a filter soul track.
I step into the ring yelling orale. From Mexico all the way to the USA.
Major brag, raise his edge. Hardcore nigga take pain instead. I don't know, get the guillotine. Flaming chairs and I hit you with a DDT. What you really mean? Heaven knows I never back down, never sleep a hoe. Make a tap out, smoke a headband. Jimmy Floss, nigga Steez. Top rope, jump off 1, 2, 3. Get the coughing, choke slam. All a part of a program. So raw, so focused. No taunts, no dope shit. No clowns, no dope shit. Pointless.
Say you do it, say ain't made for it. What they listen is the path been paid for. That's why he get up top, like he belong there. And when he take it off, it's like he on air. Flying high down, like the birds do. It's all over with styles, it's flying over you. Don't forget the name, the game is his to claim. Reach the DNA, we about to change the thing. Everybody get ready to fly.
Welcome to part 3 of Rappin' Wrestling, a deep dive where I break down the times that the worlds of professional wrestling and rap have collided. I'm really not going to hold you guys for too much longer. But before I get into the video, I would first like to thank you guys for coming to see this. If you like the content, you should like, comment, and subscribe to help the channel grow. Also, follow my Instagram too, that would be greatly appreciated. You guys can always reach out and just show me some love, it's all good. Let me know where you're tuning in from, represent where you're from. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Let's kick off this video with the man who was one of my favorite wrestlers growing up. I liked his music, his look, and pretty much everything about him. I've mentioned him before in earlier episodes of this series. I mentioned how I love his old theme song, which is I'm Coming by the rapper Silk the Shocker. I feel like a lot of people love this theme, and in my opinion, it's one of the better rap theme songs, but MVP surprisingly doesn't like this song. In an interview, he would say, I always hated that theme. I never liked that theme. As a matter of fact, I remember the first time they gave it to me, I took it home and I listened to it and I was like, it's alright. They then called me and told me Vince wanted to talk to me in the arena. So I went out by the ring and he was like, yeah, come over here MVP, let's listen to your music. They played it in the arena and Vince was very unrhythmically bopping to it and he goes, what do you think? So I said, if you like it, I love it, boss. His current theme is called Baller's Anthem and is done by himself. MVP has been rapping for quite some time and has released a good amount of music throughout the years. He would release his first official rap song in 2011 called Holla at the World. Wrestlers Carlito, Shelton Benjamin, and Hernandez would appear in the music video for the song. MVP would tell his fans that this song would only be the beginning of his rap career. The song Tokyo would follow not that long after this. Speaking of Tokyo, after being released by the WWE, MVP would go to New Japan Pro Wrestling. He really wanted to go wrestle over there and he had success with him becoming the first IWGP Intercontinental Champion. While MVP was in Japan, he would use the song Ghetto Strong Style, which he made for himself. The title is in reference to the style of wrestling that's popular in Japan. It's essentially a style of wrestling that combines pro wrestling moves and martial arts that is characterized by its intense action and what would be called stiff by most people. MVP says that he's doing the ghetto version of that. Here's a clip of the song.
Ghetto strong style. From the south side to the east side to the north side, west side, we be ballin'. Ghetto strong style, kicking down doors, step up to the best thing, you'll be falling. Yeah, MVP, you know the name, and you know my game, ain't no one realer. And they think I lost it every time I cross the Pacific, I'm the Black Godzilla.
After his time in New Japan, he would debut in TNA. He would go on and use the song Return of the Ronin, which ended up being his theme song when he first went there. While he was in TNA, he would first create the MLK Alliance, which essentially was the predecessor for the Hurt Business, which we'll get into later. After the MLK Alliance, MVP would form the Beatdown Clan, where he would do their theme as well. Let's skip ahead to when MVP returned back to the WWE. At first, he would make sporadic appearances with the company until he ultimately formed the Hurt Business faction. At the time, I wasn't watching the product, so I completely missed the faction's initial run, which really sucks for me. I've heard nothing but good things and have heard that their run ended prematurely. At the time I'm making this video, it seems like the Hurt Business is getting back together, which I'm really excited about. During the faction's first run, rappers Westside Gunn, Smoke DZA, and Wale would make the song The Hurt Business in dedication to the group. MVP would appear on the remix to the song, and about this he would say, "I started writing some new stuff and I got a huge look. One of the biggest boosts as far as my music goes was during the pandemic, as the Hurt Business became this huge phenomenon that everybody was into, from Westside Gunn, Wale, and Smoke DZA all collaborated on a song and they called it The Hurt Business. And for those of you listening to this who don't know, those guys are heavyweights in the hip hop industry, And I had lost my phone when they dropped it, and for a few days I was completely out of touch. Got my phone back, I see all these messages, "Hey, did you hear this? Did you hear this? Did you see this?" So I reached out and I was like, "Hey man, how you gonna have a Hurt Business song without me?" And they were like, "Man, send a verse, we'll do a remix." And I said, "All right, send me the track," and I did it, and they did a remix. MVP does have a really good verse on the remix, and people would tell him that he stood his own and makes great music. He would actually make a song with Smoke DZA, who appeared on the Hurt Business track. The song with MVP and Smoke DZA would be called Legalize It and was released on 4/20 in 2022 and was produced by 80 Empire. After the Hurt Business broke up, MVP started to represent Omos, who went on to have a feud with Bobby Lashley. MVP would notably make a diss track towards Bobby Lashley called Fall Mighty. During this second run in the WWE, MVP would also change up his theme music since he didn't like his original music. Balor's Anthem would be his new theme, and I actually really like this theme as well. His rap in this is really good, and I really like the hook. I don't think that there's an MVP theme that I don't really like, regardless of whether it was in WWE, TNA, or New Japan. Hopefully we can get some more music out of MVP soon, and here's to hope that the Hurt Business gets back together and has another run. Does Ric Flair really need any introduction? His lifestyle has become the rapper blueprint with the girls, cars, money, partying, etc. If you watch old Ric Flair promos, it's like he's rapping in a sense, and he was steadily dropping bars. Throughout the years, Ric Flair's name has been dropped in countless rap songs, and he's had so many songs titled after his name. Most notably, Offset and Metro Boomin would make the song Ric Flair drip. This song ended up peaking at number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100. Ric Flair would appear in the music video for the song and even accompanied Offset to some live performances. The song would also appear on the WWE 2K19 soundtrack. About how the song came together, Ric Flair would say, "Well, I knew that he was a fan, and the people I work with, a guy named Cam Fordham, reached out to him. Cam deals with many of the guys in the industry. I think they either reached out to Cam or the other way around to see if I wanted to do it, and I said, hell yeah. So I got to spend the day with Offset, and he's just a phenomenal young man. So respectful, so just genuine. He's a real guy, great music. He's just living that life that I love." From this, Offset and Ric Flair would develop a friendship, and they've been spotted out numerous times together. Offset even has a $70,000 custom Ric Flair chain, which he got for his birthday in 2017. A year earlier, in 2016, Ric Flair would have a relationship with another rapper who's known as Waka Flocka Flame. I remember when this happened in real time, but in 2016, Waka Flocka Flame and Ric Flair put in their bid for the 2016 presidential election. Their goal was to make America woo again. A huge problem arose because at the time, Waka Flocka was too too young to run due to him not meeting the minimum age requirement, which is 35 years old. Their campaign ad is still hilarious though. Another rapper that Ric Flair has a notable friendship with is Bad Bunny. I plan to talk about Bad Bunny more in the 4th installment of the series. Ric Flair would even appear in a Bad Bunny music video. Killer Mike, Cameron, and Pusha T are other rappers who have an affinity for Ric Flair as well. I really wanted to keep this Ric Flair segment short and sweet because honestly, we can go on and on about the man. I don't want to get to the point where I'm naming every video, song, or whatever Rick or any person for that matter has been in. But it's funny that we've talked about the Migos in this segment because they've made a couple of appearances in the WWE. Offset of the Migos would introduce Charlotte Flair on an episode of SmackDown Live in 2019. 3 years later, in January of 2022, the Migos would accompany RK Bro during their entrance for their match at the Day 1 pay-per-view. They would also have their song Straightening be the theme song for the event. Doing this was a scratch off of the bucket list for the Migos. They had always watched wrestling since they were young. With Takeoff and Quavo, their first dream as kids was to become tag team partners in the WWE. They dreamt about being wrestlers and had all the action figures growing up. It's really sad because Takeoff would end up passing in November of 2022. WWE had plans of having another Day 1 pay-per-view this year in 2023 and had plans of inviting the Migos back. The Day 1 pay-per-view ended up turning into a house show, and prior to Takeoff's death, the Migos would split. Offset and Quavo could still make appearances in the WWE or even other promotions, but with the feud going on between them right now, it probably won't be together. Action Bronson is one of the few rappers that actually looks like a wrestler himself. In the words of Action Bronson, why would I have a bodyguard if I look just like the bodyguard? If you're a fan of his music, you would know that Action is an avid wrestling fan. He has songs with wrestling references like Intercontinental Championship, Ron Simmons, Barry Horowitz, and The Rockers, to name a few. Action has been a lifelong wrestling fan, and there are even clips and pictures of him at an ECW show when he was a kid around 1997-1998. Growing up, some of Action's favorite wrestlers were Kamala, Tito Santana, Rick Martel, the Hart Foundation, Lex Luger, Arn Anderson, Dean Malenko, and many more. Before Action was a rapper, he was a chef, but that career path would take an abrupt end. He was involved in an accident while working in the kitchen. Action Bronson would slip on oil and ultimately broke his leg, putting him out of work. Eventually, his rap career would take off, but you could always tell that he had a love for wrestling. He constantly referenced it in his music, and he even put a couple moves on people during his performances. There are clips online of Action clotheslining people and putting them in torture racks during his concerts. One thing about Action is that he was always a heavy guy even as a kid. He was known as the big white guy who raps about food. Things would change in 2019 when Action Bronson would start his weight loss journey. This journey was inspired by the birth of his son. Action wanted to be around for his son when he got older and felt like the only way to do it was to get in better shape and prioritize his own health. While he was on this weight loss journey, he would start pro wrestling training. He would train at Creative Pro Wrestling, which is a professional wrestling academy in New York. Current AEW wrestlers MJF and Max Caster are graduates of this academy. Hook is a current AEW wrestler, and he is the son of ECW legend Taz. Hook uses the Action Bronson song The Chairman's Intent for his entrance music. Hook has been an Action Bronson fan since he was in the 6th grade. He would hear him shout out all these old school wrestlers, and he liked the New York vibe of his music. Hook had a feeling that his dad Taz would also like Action Bronson's music, and he ended up loving Action Bronson. Taz went on to befriend Action Bronson not that long after this. In 2021, Action Bronson was contacted by Taz and was told that his son Hook was making his debut in AEW and wanted to use his song The Chairman's Intent. Action Bronson was all for this, and Tony Khan, who's the president of AEW, felt like licensing the song was an investment in the presentation of a very important young wrestler. Tony Khan really liked the song and was okay with paying the fee to license the song. Overall, he feels like Action is a good guy, and Action would end up appearing for the company. At AEW All Out, Hook would retain his FTW championship and would be attacked by members of the Jericho Appreciation Society. This led to Action coming out from the crowd to defend Hook. Action Bronson would then challenge the attackers to come into the ring for a fight, which ended up happening down the line. Action Bronson would end up making his AEW in-ring debut at AEW Rampage Grand Slam in September of 2022. At AEW Rampage Grand Slam, Action would perform Hook's entrance music on the way to the ring, where they proceeded to have a tag team match with Matt Menard and Angelo Parker of the Jericho Appreciation Society. Hook and Action would end up winning this match via submission. Underneath the video on YouTube, you'll see very positive comments about Action and how he moves great for his size and was quite impressive. People did notice that Action didn't really take any bumps during the match. Here's what Action would say about this in an interview. Taking the bump, I just practice offense. F that, I don't fall. I have it in the contract. I don't fall. Taking bumps is serious. It's not an easy thing. I've worked different styles, and this is one of the toughest. I love it. Running the ropes, it's intense, makes me feel good. You have to hit them right, no doubt about it. He would also say that while he won't be able to do a Hurricane Rana, he can do lots of different things in the ring that we haven't seen yet. He is not a part of the AEW roster, but he describes himself as a hired gun, a hitman for hire. I definitely hope that we see more of Action Bronson in AEW, because that would be really cool, because I really want to see what he's most capable of. Back in the day when I was a kid, I used to watch TNA when it was good. And watching AJ Styles was always a highlight for me. Truly one of the best wrestlers of all time, and while he was in TNA, he had some pretty sick theme music. According to AJ Styles himself, he knows more about Christian hip-hop than any other person on the planet. Christian hip-hop and what it's about is pretty self-explanatory. AJ himself is a devout Christian. AJ would say, "My communities and my Christian rap music. Church doesn't have to be a place. When you're around other Christians, you can get excited about Jesus together, therefore you worship as a church together. I can worship in my car listening to Lecrae, it doesn't matter." Lecrae is AJ's favorite Christian rapper, and Lecrae is one of, if not the most popular Christian rappers out there right now. His love for Christian music began in the mid-90s when his now wife bought him a DJ Dove tape in 1997. He went to a Christian bookstore called Celebration and bought the whole rap section of artists on a record label called Grapetree. Artists such as Lil Rascal, FTF, and LG Wise were some of his favorites. He ended up buying CDs even if he didn't like them that much, because he didn't know where else that he was going to get Christian rap music. His wife would get very upset with him because he would keep buying records even when their money was tight. Christian rap is a lot bigger now than it was back then, and a group that AJ would take interest in listening to was the group Grits. If you don't know who Grits is, I guarantee that you have heard their song Ooh Ah My Life Be Like before. While AJ Styles was in TNA, he would meet the group at Universal Studios where TNA recorded their shows. Grits ended up remixing AJ's theme music I Am Get Ready to Fly. They would even perform the song during AJ's entrance on Impact, which was really cool. The clip is on YouTube. AJ Styles ended up becoming good friends with the members of Grits and still keeps in touch with them till this very day. I swear though, AJ has never, and I repeat, has never had a bad theme song regardless of where he was at. TNA, WWE, New Japan, Ring of Honor, etc. Most of his theme songs are very popular, with the one that he used in Ring of Honor being his favorite, and I can't blame him because that song is a banger. It's called Demigods and was done by the Lab Rats and Slim J.
I'm taking turns from the worst, learn what was really worth. Put it first, never hurt the people that you love. And if you can't do that, then you should give the game up, straight up. This is my life, give it everything I got. Live bright, out of sight, shining in the limelight.
Definitely one of the best rap theme songs out there, and his current theme, Phenomenal in WWE, is a banger as well and is fairly popular. Right now at the time I'm making this video, AJ Styles is injured, so I definitely wish him a speedy recovery because WWE is heating up and I can't wait. Now, some people might look at this entry in the series sideways, but you can categorize Fred Durst and Limp Bizkit under the rap rock genre. Nonetheless, this is also someone people wanted me to talk about, so here's his and Limp Bizkit's entry into the series. Fred Durst is a really big fan of wrestling, and he's known as the frontman for the band Limp Bizkit, who was very popular around the turn of the millennium. Nu metal was very huge back in the day, and in this era, Limp Bizkit began to get known as WWE's favorite band due to their relationship with one another. As many people already know, The Undertaker would change his character to the American Badass. While he was performing under this character, he ended up adopting the Rollin' theme song by Limp Bizkit. Limp Bizkit's relationship with the WWE wouldn't end there, because the WWE, then WWF, would call on the group to make the theme song for WrestleMania 17. The theme song for that event would be the song My Way, and that song is amazing and plays a huge part in wrestling history. Not only was it the theme song for WrestleMania 17, but it was the theme song that played in the promo package for the main event, which was Austin vs. The Rock. Hands down, one of the best, if not the best, promo packages I've ever seen. This would only be the beginning, because Fred Durst ended up making his way into a WWE video game. WWF SmackDown Just Bring It. The story that I've seen of how Fred Durst got to be a playable character in the game was that the WWF asked him if they could use the Limp Bizkit song Rollin' for the game. It's alleged that in order for the WWF to be able to use Rollin' in the game, Fred Durst had to be added to the game as a playable character, which would explain why he's in the game. I've never played the game, but from doing research on this, it looks like unlocking him was truly a journey. You had to beat 15 wrestlers in the slobber knocker mode with The Undertaker. This wouldn't be the last time that Fred Durst was in a WWE game, because he would also appear in WWF Raw, which was released in February of 2002. In order to unlock him in this game, you had to win all of the championship belts. After this, Limp Bizkit would return with another one of their songs being used as a theme song for a WrestleMania. This time, it would be for WrestleMania 19, and it would be their song Crack Addict, which was chosen to be the theme. They performed the song at WrestleMania, but they would also perform the song Rollin' for the Undertaker's entrance at the event as well. About this, the Undertaker would say, "Rollin' and being on the bike all tied in together, again another high energy song, a song that a lot of people recognize and identified with. A wrestling match, in my eyes, doesn't start at the bell. It starts when the music plays. As soon as that music kicks in, your match has started. It sets the tone for the entire match." It was such a high energy, fun song, and still kind of badass, and got people going and got them excited. The lyrics obviously weren't quite the same, but the energy level was still where we wanted it to be. It was really cool in Seattle at WrestleMania when Limp Bizkit played me in. Came in American flag off the back of my bike, one of my favorite entrances actually. Limp Bizkit would make one more song for a WWE pay-per-view when they had the theme music for Survivor Series 2003 with their song Build a Bridge. It wouldn't be until 2012 to when we saw Fred Durst on WWE programming again. Fred Durst would appear at WWE's annual SummerSlam event, and he would flip the camera off when it showed him on screen. Since his last appearance on WWE before this, the WWE has shifted to a PG product, and Fred doing this didn't align with the direction that the company was going in towards being more family friendly. After this, Fred would go backstage to apologize for his actions. There were rumors that he got kicked out following this incident, but this was denied by Fred Durst, and the reason why he gave for him leaving early was for him to beat LA traffic. He would clear this up with a tweet and say that WWE was family. There was a rumor that WWE approached Limp Bizkit to perform at WrestleMania 32, but this was proven to be false. However, WWE isn't the only promotion that they've appeared on TV for, because they would also appear in ECW when Steve Corino crashed their concert in 1999. The footage is on YouTube if you want to see it, and it's really epic, and it's as 90s as it gets. Steve Corino said that the whole thing was an accident and happened by chance. He just dyed his hair blonde after months of Raven telling him to do it to add to his look. Steve was supposed to wrestle the Sandman in Peoria, Illinois, but the Sandman wasn't ready to perform because he's the Sandman and he was drunk as a skunk. An event promoter came up to Steve and told him that a band was next door and they wanted to do something with the wrestlers. Steve volunteered himself because he didn't have a match. The crazy thing is that Steve had no clue who Limp Bizkit was, which ended up being the band. He recognized their song Nookie, and Steve was surprised when he realized that he was about to go on stage with Limp Bizkit in front of a packed arena. Really cool moment and definitely a great watch, as I said. Another promotion that Limp Bizkit has ties to but has never appeared for is AEW. During a concert in May of 2022, Limp Bizkit would perform their song Full Nelson. AEW wrestlers Sonny Kiss, Chuck Taylor, and John Silver would accompany them on stage. Going back to the WWE, there are fans lobbying for Limp Bizkit to one day be entered into the WWE Hall of Fame for their work in the company, but this has yet to happen. This is an entry I was looking very forward to, especially after I heard the song Bow Wow Wow that appeared on the WCW Mayhem Soundtrack. Plus, I find myself listening to Konnan's Keeping It 100 podcast to keep up with some of the latest news going on in wrestling. But getting into this segment, Konnan would say this about how he got into music. I grew up in Miami in a park called Carroll City. It's mostly a black, Jamaican, and Latino neighborhood, so music was all around me. From James Brown to Parliament to Celia Cruz to Bob Marley to everything in between. I grew up with a lot of good music. My parents being Cuban and Puerto Rican, they liked salsa and merengue music, so I was listening to that stuff. But at the same time, I was listening to the early stages of hip hop and how that developed. So I was around a lot of music my whole life. The rap group Public Enemy really resonated with him due to the things that they were rapping about playing out in his own community. From that point on, the hip hop culture became a part of his life. Konnan would go on to become a wrestler and has said that back then the locker room's reaction to rap music wasn't good. There were a lot of racial comments made and people were very narrow-minded at the time. There were a few guys in the locker room that were into rap music back in the day, and one of them would be Yokozuna. Yokozuna would be the person that put Konnan on listening to people like Master P, No Limit Records, and a bunch of gangster rappers. Yokozuna, if you guys don't know, is not actually Japanese and is Samoan and is a part of the legendary Hawaii wrestling family, with his family being people like Roman Reigns, The Rock, Rikishi, the Usos, etc. There are stories of Yokozuna being really into rap and him freestyling and doing things of that nature. Konnan has said that Yokozuna loved his character in the NWO and wanted Yokozuna to come to WCW and be a Samoan gangster. This never came to fruition due to Yokozuna being put on the spot to sign to WCW by Scott Hall while he was with Eric Bischoff. Yokozuna felt offended by this and these plans never ended up happening. But back to Konnan, and while he was in WCW, he played a part in Master P coming to the promotion. Now, I went into great length about this already in the first episode of the series, so check that out if you want to know more. Konnan ended up being a part of the No Limit Soldiers faction alongside Rey Mysterio, who was also in the faction as well. Prior to appearing on the WCW Mayhem Soundtrack, Konnan had released music in Mexico, but it was more pop oriented, while in WCW, Konnan had the Bow Wow Wow song in addition to making the theme song for the Filthy Animals faction. These two songs drew the attention of none other than the legendary founder of Rap-A-Lot Records, Jay Prince. About this, Konnan would say, "He got a hold of me and flew me out to his studios in Houston. He really liked what I was about and he liked my swag and all that. He actually told me, I didn't even know that you could do this in the music industry back then, but this is how much faith he had in me. He said, I'm going to buy the first 500,000 copies of your album so you can go gold in the first week and start an incredible buzz. He said, you can pick any producer you want and I'll have them produce your stuff." So he really must, especially back then in 1997, when not even Eric Bischoff or Vince McMahon got it. He understood how important the Latino demo was, especially living in Houston, so he wanted a guy for the Latino audience. During this time period, Konnan was bumping heads with Eric Bischoff, who was the senior vice president of WCW at this time. They weren't seeing eye to eye on a lot of things, including Eric taking Rey Mysterio's mask off, which was seen as very disrespectful due to how important the mask is in Mexico and for Mexican wrestlers. Konnan wanted to do a deal with Rap A Lot Records, but Eric wanted Konnan to go to Tommy Boy Records. Konnan wasn't really feeling this because he felt like at this time, Tommy Boy had a weak roster as far as hip hop. Tommy Boy only wanted a song out of Konnan, while Jay Prince wanted to push him as an artist. As Konnan said, Jay Prince understood his gimmick and he thought that he would flourish more underneath him. It also helped that Konnan was a huge fan of the Ghetto Boys who were with Rap A Lot Records. This unfortunately never materialized, which Konnan faults Eric Bischoff for, and Konnan really wanted to pursue rap more seriously. With this, he realized that he had one shot, but it just didn't really work out. This, however, never stopped him from doing rap and having rap involved in his wrestling gimmicks. While Konnan was in TNA, he would be a part of the faction The 3 Live Crew with Ron Killings and BG James. The 3 Live Crew name is a reference to the rap group The 2 Live Crew. Konnan would be involved in the theme song for the group. Also, while in TNA, he would be a part of the LAX faction who had a very good rap theme song. While the Rap A Lot thing never worked out, Konnan has said that there is always a possibility that in the future he might produce for some people. He further said that he will always have some sort of relationship with rap and hip hop music. Speaking of members of the NWO Wolfpack, I think it's time that we discuss Kevin Nash. The NWO Black and White along with the NWO Wolfpack were insanely popular during the prime of WCW. Kevin Nash has gone on record and said that several of the NWO catchphrases drew inspiration from West Coast rap. Once West Coast rap got really hot, and especially Death Row, we began listening to Death Row a lot in the car, and there was this old Mack 10 song, and in this Mack 10 song, they rob a McDonald's and one dude says to the other dude in the car that he'd been wanting to do that for 2 years, and the other guy says that he'd been wanting to do that for life. So that is where we got that. Most of our catchphrases and those things that we did, we got from West Coast rap. Immediately, I remember I put my headband on backwards like Tupac. Here is a 35-year-old white guy with the headband on backwards, but it worked. I did not want this segment to end short, so I'll add the inclusion of RZA of the Wu-Tang Clan and Batista. The two would meet each other back in 2010. RZA, along with the various members of Wu-Tang, are big wrestling fans. When RZA met Batista, he was looking for actors for his upcoming movie at the time, The Man with the Iron Fist. He was looking for someone to play the character Brass Body, and eventually RZA got in contact with Batista to play the part. Batista credits RZA for giving him his first big break in acting, and looking at Batista now as far as acting, he's doing really well, so that's cool that RZA saw that much potential in him. This wouldn't be the end of RZA and Batista because Batista would make a return to wrestling in 2014. This run is not received well by fans at all. One thing that fans do receive well and love is Batista's entrance music. One of the best theme songs of the Ruthless Aggression era, but for this 2014 run, Batista wanted to change things up a bit. He would reveal that RZA was going to add some lyrics to this theme song to give it an updated feel during this run. WWE said no to this even though RZA was going to do it for free. This just added to Batista's frustrations with the company around this time. I'm definitely interested in what that could have sounded like, so it definitely sucks that we never got to hear it. Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes are two of my favorite wrestlers in NXT at the moment. Of course, we know that Melo is him and he's a great performer, but I think that people be sleeping on my man Trick Willie. This dude is naturally hilarious and he's very solid in the ring and has made drastic improvements. These two actually got me regularly watching NXT again after years, and I noticed that they make a lot of references to rap and hip hop culture. Another thing that I noticed is that these two wear Bad Boy Records gear a lot. This was a rather late inclusion on the list, but a couple days before I finished this script, Trick Williams released the song Good Looking Wrestler. For a wrestler, it's a really solid song, and with some polish, it can be great. He really reminds me of Juvenile in terms of delivery. Not a lot of sources say where Trick Williams is from, but I found a few that say South Carolina. I'm not sure if that's entirely true, but he definitely sounds like he's from Louisiana, how he's rapping on the track. Carmelo Hayes has one of, if not the best theme songs on NXT right now, which is the Greatest by Def Rebel. While this is a good song, a lot of people liked his original theme music, which was the song Award Me. Trick Williams currently has a New York drill inspired theme called You Know I'm About It. Lately, I've been hearing fans chant "Whoop That Trick" when Trick Williams is present on screen, which I think is hilarious. I think that it would be hilarious if WWE actually got the licensing for the song "Whoop That Trick" from the Hustle and Flow movie. That would be so hard, but that probably would never happen. Trick Williams doesn't even need the song, he could just have the beat for all I care, and I can only imagine hearing the fans chant "Whoop that trick, whoop that trick." Like, that would be super gold, but it's just an idea. Now we get to Hit Row, and currently people aren't too high on them. Personally, I try to root for all of my black wrestlers. I wasn't watching Hit Row when they were on NXT, but from what I've heard, the group is really lacking due to them missing Swerve. I do think that a potential member that could really spice the group up is JTG from Crime Time. He's currently not with the WWE, but I've seen a couple of his matches on the indies recently, and I think that he would make a great addition for the group depending on how the WWE plays it. As far as Hit Row, they're currently a group comprised of Top Dollar, Ashanti the Adonis, B-Fab, and formerly Swerve. Hit Row is an obvious take on the legendary Death Row Records, with people looking at Top Dollar as a Suge Knight type figure. Now that they turned heel, I would really like to see Top Dollar in the group act more ruthless, especially if they drew inspiration from Death Row. As a group, they've made diss tracks to their opponents while also doing raps in their promos. The main person who raps in the group, I would say, is Top Dollar, and he's released numerous tracks and freestyles on social media. Swerve does rap too, and his song Broke Boys is the best song that I've heard from him. I also just saw on Twitter that Hit Row is working on a concept rap album right now, so if that comes out, it'll probably come out sometime this year. Hopefully Hit Row can turn things around soon. Maybe a run in NXT and an addition of a new member would revitalize them. This will conclude the third installment of this series about rap and wrestling. Definitely let me know in the comments what you're thinking so far. Let me know some more things to include. All in all, let me know what you thought of the video. I love you guys with all my heart. Peace.